Audience, welcome to Viewpoint from Overseas. This is your host, Ms. Azam. With me is Mr. Riaz Haq. Thank you, Riaz. Before we start our topics, we have in a Muslim month of Ramadan is starting from tomorrow. So Riaz and I will talk a little bit about that what is the message of Ramadan and how we should behave and what type of message we should be giving to the world. So Riaz, how you see that, and especially things were happening in the world, I mean recent attack in Manchester and all those kind of things, how you put them together, what kind of message of Ramadan we should be giving to the world?
Yeah, so Ramzan is the most important month in the Islamic calendar. And it has a number of lessons for Muslims. I think the first and the most important one is that teaches Muslims self-control, self-restraint. Because when you have to go without food and water for an entire day, it takes a lot of personal restraint to do that. Most of the emphasis, though, that I find in the various sermons given during the month by the religious people and others, seem to be focused on what is called Huqooq-ul-Allah, which is prayers. They talk about if you pray,
of the God.
if you pray this month, Huqooq-ul-Allah, in other words, basically, prayers.
Yeah.
Ibadat, worships. They talk about, if you fast, you're going to get so much reward. If you pray, you get so much reward. So the great emphasis is on that aspect. I have a feeling that I think it's very important to, along with the discussion of Huqooq-ul-Allah, which is the responsibilities toward Allah, we also need to talk about responsibilities toward our fellow human beings. The concept of Huqooq-ul-Ibad, the human rights.
Human rights.
And that is something that actually I believe is neglected. In this month, it's very important for us to not only treat our fellow human beings kindly, and have more compassion for them. Kindness and compassion is very important, but it should serve as a way to prepare for the rest of the year, to continue to have that patience, that tolerance, that acceptance, that compassion, that kindness for others, which is often ignored.
Yeah. How you see that the growing intolerance among the Muslim people towards other religions and other sects, and where it is going to stop? I mean, this is...
Yeah, I think the problem is that people don't fully understand the spirit of Islam. If you read the Quran, there is so many things that are there that are often ignored by people. One of the things, for example, that it says is that وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةُ لِلْعَالَمِينَ. We sent Prophet Muhammad as mercy to mankind.
Not the Muslims.
Not Muslim. It doesn't say Rahmatul lil Muslimin, it says Rahmatul lil Alamin, for all of humanity. So that means that if Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came as a mercy to mankind, we as followers of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam need to copy that example, need to emulate that, and to be just as kind as he was to others. The other important thing that we need to understand is, there's so many things in the Quran, like Rahafatin. There is no compulsion in religion. You can't force people to do certain things a certain way. You have to let people be what they want to be. So, one other thing that really bothered me this year, and there's a bill that's still being considered by the parliament in Pakistan, is the Ramadan bill.
Yeah, that is...
Which is respect for Ramzan. Basically, you're going to force people to not eat, and if anybody eats, they're going to beat them up.
That's true. And how about the non-Muslims?
Yeah, this is very punitive. Not only that, yeah, exactly.
I mean, how
exactly. I mean, you have children, you have older people, you have sick people who obviously cannot, fast, and there is they have a very valid reason for not fasting. What are you going to do about them? I mean, you need to have something available for them. So at the end of the day, we should have to let people decide for themselves how they want to pray and where they want to pray. It's okay.
And if they want to pray.
If they want to pray. You cannot force your views upon the rest of the world. That is compulsion. And that is forbidden in Islam.
And especially from the government's level.
Yeah.
I mean, this is
and then it says, Lakum dinakum faliyadin. Your religion is for you and others' religion is for them. So you cannot impose your values, your faith, your religion upon everybody else. If people want to practice it differently, people want to do it their way, let them do it. So I think these are some of the things. These are basic human rights of other people that we must learn to respect.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will move to our regular topics now. Riaz and I are going to discuss about the economic survey which usually comes in Pakistan, which usually comes before the budget appropriation bill is being presented. Today, Pakistan's finance minister, Mr. Ishaq Dar, he presented the appropriation bill in the parliament. According to that, the claims are that we have like 5.3% growth this year. PSDP, which is Public Sector Development Program, that has increased because there is a room. But there are some weaknesses also. Say for an instance that for the roads, building roads and all, there are $3.2 billion are given towards that, and only $400 million for the water supply. The government claims that actually it is more or less provincial issue. So basically provinces have to worry about that. Then another thing, that the current account deficit last year was $2.5 billion. This year is close to $8.5 billion. And some of the analysts believe that the debt servicing, which government denies usually, they say it's around 45% of the revenue. So I will have Riaz's comment on that. So Riaz, how you see all that, I gave you some numbers, but you can just give a little bit more detail about what came in the economic survey and what do you expect from the budget, from the appropriation bill. Obviously it becomes budget once it is approved.
So first let's talk about the economic survey of Pakistan 2016-17. It's a document that basically recaps what happened during the current fiscal year that's going to end in June of this year. So one of the things it says is it projects the growth to be 5.3% by the end of June of this year. It says that the nominal GDP in terms of exchange rate dollars will be over $300 billion. This is the first time it's going to cross that mark. In terms of the purchasing power parity, it will exceed $1 trillion. So it'll become $1 trillion economy. In terms of per capita income, in nominal dollars, it'll be more than $1,600. And in terms of purchasing power parity, it's going to be close to $6,000 a year. So those are some of the big numbers. Also, there's been a significant amount of increase in the cement consumption, the steel consumption, energy consumption. All of these indicate there's been a lot of development activity, a lot of economic activity during the year, which is pushing. A lot of cars have been sold. So all of that is an indication that the growth is real, that is the result of serious economic, economic activities of the country. The one area where I think the Pakistan need to worry about, all Pakistani need to worry about, is that the literacy rate actually dropped by 2 percentage points. It went down from 60% to 58%, which is very alarming. Already it was low to begin with at 60%, and now it's even lower. The other thing that is a matter of concern is the enrollment rate for the primary kids. That is also actually down from the previous year. So one of the themes that I see, even in the budget that's being proposed now, is that there is extraordinary focus on developing infrastructure and energy projects, which is important. I think we need that infrastructure, but it needs to be balanced against the needs for human development, particularly education and healthcare. That's where we need to spend more money. So if you look at the budget that's being proposed, it's a $50 billion budget. Out of those 50 billion, 20 billion are allocated to development, which is basically mostly infrastructure type work, infrastructure and energy. I wish they would take some of that money and put that into education, put that into healthcare, because our human indicators, human development indicators are really atrocious. Going back, if you look at, for example, during Musharraf years, one of the things that happened was that, when Musharraf took over in 2000, 2001, the net primary enrollment rate in the country was 42%. By the time he left in 2008-09, he had increased that from 42% to 57% in that period. Since then, it has essentially been stagnant. The most recent figure that in the economic survey is only 58%, which is very bad.
It's very bad.
The other thing, there's a similar issue with literacy as well. During the Musharraf years, which is from 2000 to 2013, the literacy rate in Pakistan rose from 45% in 2001-2002 to 56%. And since then, it has been essentially stagnant. It's about 58% now. So those are great areas of concern.
Yeah, but the critics say, about this theory say that now the education and all this is a provincial issue. It's not the federal government's issue. So provinces should spend more money on that. How do you see that? How do you...
I think it's such a big issue, particularly the literacy issue and the enrollment issue, that the federal government should allocate extra funds for this purpose. That these are specific to education. One of the things they could do, for example, is launch a mass literacy campaign. And that is not just schools, all kinds of different places where they can teach people to read and write. That's something that has been done in Indonesia, for example. The other thing they can do is the federal government, nobody's stopping federal government
to do these things.
To actually put money in schools. On top of what the provincial government, the federal government can come in the United States, for example, part of the budget for the schools comes from the federal government. Federal government subsidizes a lot of education. I think those things are important. We need to deal with, these are issues so big that they have to be dealt with at the national level in addition to what is being done at the provincial level.
So we have to go to break, so just in 2 minutes and then we will go to other topic. Tell me something. We are going to have a 5.3% growth rate, right? But our current account deficit is grown to $8.5 billion from 2.5 last year. Now, how we can, and then debt servicing is around 45% of that. So how we can keep thing going on? One of the very famous anchor person, he gave a very interesting example that are we tying up sack of cotton or sack of salt and jumping into the water. If it is sack of the salt, sure we will be reduced. If sack of the cotton, our weight will be more heavy. How you see it? How the country will deal with this thing that at one hand, yes, your 5.3 growth, but whatever you are growing, you are sucking inside.
Yeah, I think these deficits are not just in Pakistan. You find them in almost every country has different levels of deficits. Pakistan actually does not have such a high deficit. It's only about 3 to 4%, about 4% of GDP, which is not very large. What I think more important is how do you spend that money? if you put that money into productive purposes, then you're okay. And at the end of the day, if the ratio of debt to GDP is coming down, then that's fine. But if the debt to GDP ratio is increasing, then that's a matter of great concern. So those are the kinds of things to look at here.
Okay. Recently, after President Trump took over the office, there are the new laws towards the H-1B, and it is, according to the CNBC's report, the Indian tech sector is downsizing heavily after this new President Trump's policy. They say that Infosys, Cognizant, Tech Mahindra announced redundancies this year, and layoffs are expected next year also. McKinsey India reports that at least 200,000 software engineer jobs in India will be lost each year during next 3 years. Infosys announced layoffs of almost 1,000 senior employees. However, they announced to hire 10,000 American employees, and a lot of analysts, political analysts, they believe that it is only to woo President Trump and make them happy. In 2015, according to the Goldman Sachs, Indians are accounted for 70.1% of total H-1B visa. Riyaz, how India will deal with it? Because now they say that Tata, Infosys and Wipro, these are the three main companies which are using this facility a lot. So how they are going to deal in coming days? How you see it?
Yeah, I think they have a pretty serious problem at hand right now. If you look at the numbers, talking about 200, this is McKinsey that you quoted, 200,000 layoffs a year over the next 3 years, that's 600,000.
That's true.
Out of a total of about 3 million. There are 3 million people working in total employment in the tech sector, in India's tech sector is about 3 million. 600,000 out of 3 million is like 20%.
20%.
That's huge. That's a huge cut. Now the reasons are very, obviously Trump tightening up is a big reason. That reduces the number of H-1B visas available, therefore they can't hire and send these people to work in the United States. But the second reason is the obsolescence of the people, the obsolescence. A lot of the people, you know how the Indian tech industry started? It started in the year 2000 when they were trying to fix the Y2K problem. And what was needed was you had to go through the code and look at all the places where they were using a 2-digit year rather than a 4-digit year, and then change that so that when the year turned around in 2000, that everything wouldn't return to 1900. So that's how it started, but that's very low-level work. I mean, it's not, it's very painstaking work. There's a lot of work, it's very manual, but it is not high-tech really. And that's the kind of job that they have continued to do. A lot of the Indians basically work in more mundane type of IT tasks, the installation of software, maintenance of software, doing backups. And a lot of these tasks are being automated. And the cloud computing change has actually changed a lot of this, because what's happening now is that instead of companies maintaining their own hardware, their own infrastructure, they just rent it from others, people like Amazon Web Services or Microsoft or Google, because they offer all these services to them. So India's problem is twofold. One is obviously H-1B, but the other problem is that they have not really kept up. The skill set has not kept up, and that has to be developed as well. So coming days actually we will find out more about it, how it comes out and how India is going to deal with this thing. I'm sure India is a mature democracy and they have a ways to deal with such type of problems.
Let's move to the other topic. Our President Trump, recently visited three centers of religious centers, then Brussels also for the NATO center, and he had a very warm welcome in all those countries. Interestingly, President Trump's some of his conservative supporters were telling on TV that look at it in Saudi Arabia, there was nobody taking placard and all that. It is a little bit laughable matter, who can stand up in Saudi Arabia with placard? I mean, but when he went to Israel, there was a demonstration against him. Israel is a democracy. Riyaz, let's not worry about how he did what he said. Just please give us a general thing, the way you look into your crystal ball by looking at this trip, and then you look into your crystal ball, what is going to happen? What is the real goal of President Trump to do it? And is he going to achieve, or have he achieved, or how you see this thing?
I think if you look at his trip to Saudi Arabia, one of the things that he was trying to do is try to create an alliance with the Saudis and the other Arab nations, along with Israel, to solve the Palestinian problem, because he seems to think that if he has the backing of the Saudis and the Israelis, he can isolate Iran. Iran is the reason why they're coming together. They could solve the Palestinian problem. I don't think that's going to be that simple. It's not that simple a problem, because the Israelis basically are not willing to make any concessions at all.
They don't have to.
Yeah, they have the upper hand,
Yeah.
so they don't. So I think that's probably not going to happen. But I would say that Trump's visit to Saudi Arabia was essentially a return to the norm for the U.S. policy. The U.S. policy changed somewhat during the Obama years. So, but what Trump has done is essentially brought it back to what it was during the Bush years. Very close Saudi ties and a lot of rhetoric against Iran. And that's what he did there. What is surprising though is that even though he is essentially returning to the Republican policies as far as the Middle East is concerned, he is not doing that with vis-a-vis the Europeans. That's where he's making a lot of waves right now. In Europe, the Europeans are very unhappy with the United States. They don't see eye to eye with Trump on a number of issues, the key ones being the issue of trade, because Trump wants to tamp down on trade. He's said some very harsh things about Germany, that Germany is bad.
Yes, yeah.
Then the other thing he's done is he's talking about going back on climate change, on the Paris Accord that Obama administration had signed. And then with respect to Russia, he's talking about removing sanctions against Russia, which the Europeans are opposed to.
That's true.
So I think there's a lot of issues with respect to Europe. So the old alliance the United States has had with Western Europe seems to be in some jeopardy right now.
So there is a very interesting type of theories about there. There is one theory is that what President Obama wanted to achieve and whatever he achieved so far, President Trump basically reverted.
Let's roll back.
Well, yes. Then there is another theory. Actually, this is not the case. What President Obama was trying, President Trump further strengthened. And what he wanted to try, he wanted to create an alliance against Iran and creating some sort of wall between Iran and Israel to protect Israel. And President Obama further strengthened that. How you see these theories and which theory you believe and how we are going to see in coming days. And please also add where Pakistan stands in all that. Because the way Pakistani Prime Minister was treated in Saudi Arabia, later on King Salman apologized. not exactly from Pakistan only, he apologized from all of those leaders who were not allowed to speak. But shows that Pakistan's position is not the way it used to be, and this critical balance government of Pakistan tried to create between Iran and Saudi Arabia, how this thing all will work.
I think Nawaz Sharif, Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, has a very difficult balancing task here. On the one hand, Pakistan has had close ties with Saudi Arabia. Millions of Pakistanis work there. They send billions of dollars home, which depends. The economy is heavily dependent on those dollars coming in from Saudi Arabia, from the workers' remittances. At the same time, Pakistan has a border with Iran. Pakistan wants to maintain friendly ties with Iran because it's sitting right next to it in a very hostile environment where you have, very bad relations with India and Afghanistan. So Iran, Pakistan doesn't want to create another problem there. But this is getting more and more difficult because no matter what Nawaz Sharif does or doesn't do, he's going to be criticized. Now, if, for example, at this summit, he had a more prominent role,
then that would
everybody would be criticizing him. Why did you join hands with the Saudis against the Iranians?
Yes, exactly, yeah.
See, that's the problem.
This is the election year coming also. So
not just election year. I mean, we also have the sectarian divide in our country where there are certain people, there are liberals obviously who don't like Saudi Arabia. That's true everywhere. And then you have the Shia minority in Pakistan, which is very pro-Iran and very anti-Saudi Arabia. So we have a lot of these issues we have to deal with, and we don't want to create a sectarian problem in Pakistan either. So it's a very difficult, act. But I think what Nawaz Sharif did was the right thing to do.
Okay.
If he had said, Pakistan had already said no to participating in Yemen, and that really made the Emiratis and the Saudis very angry.
That's correct.
They weren't happy at all.
Emirati ministers said
one of them actually
very
offensive things about Pakistan. Then after that, Saudi Arabia invites you to come and you say no. That would not go down very well. So I think Nawaz Sharif accepted the invitation. He did not want to play a prominent role here because if he had, that would create other problems. Everybody would say, hey, Pakistan is aligning with the Saudis against the Iranians. That would be a problem. Now, obviously, he didn't have a choice. I mean, he had to go because he didn't want to snub the Saudis. At the same time, he did not want to take a prominent role. But that upset some people who thought, hey, he was being snubbed there. So that's a problem either way.
Couldn't he be going to hospitalize for a couple of days?
Oh, I don't know about that. I think we have to maintain ties with Saudi Arabia. We cannot afford to alienate the Saudis
and make them further angrier.
Yeah, that's not a good idea.
That's true. So, ladies and gentlemen, you heard our show and Riaz Haq's views on that, and next week we will be coming back again with a new topic with a full panel. So, for my American friends, everybody in US, have a very happy Memorial Day. Memorial Day weekend. And Labor Day we do it in September.
That's the two ends of summer. Begins with Memorial Day, ends with Labor Day. You barbecue both.
Yeah, we barbecue both days. So Riaz, are you going to do some barbecue or something?
Not this weekend, but hopefully on Labor Day.
This weekend now Ramadan is starting also, so obviously things will be changed. And for all the Muslims in the world, we want to say them happy Ramadan. So keep watching Viewpoint from Overseas. This is your host, Misbah Azam and Riaz Haq. Thank you and good day.